The world is really grappling on how to deal with the rapid rise of AI. This is like no other time in human history, I think, about how AI might change the way we live and the way we work. But I think it's important that governments do regulate, but not over-regulate. Where's that balance in your view?
Well, you're right, Laura. Artificial intelligence is changing the world and will change the world. And in a few years' time, the way we work and the way we live may be unrecognisable from just a few years ago because of the changes that AI will bring about. I think overwhelmingly they will be positive. Of course, there are some risks that need to be managed, and we've supported on a bipartisan basis legislation through the Parliament, for example, to stop people using deepfake technology to create sexualised images of people without their consent. And of course, there are some very sensible contributions being made about child abuse material and other things. No one would dispute that. On the other hand, though, AI adoption and rollout is inevitable. It is technological change and progress that no one can stop, certainly not Australia. And so the head in the sand attitude of some players in this debate is only going to hold us back. And I particularly single out the demands that the ACTU, the union movement, is making of the Albanese government to allow workers to have an unlimited right of veto to prevent their employer from rolling out AI in the workplace, to introduce AI as a matter for collective bargaining, when really collective bargaining should be limited to people's pay and conditions. I mean, these are absurd claims that some in the Albanese government, like Tim Ayres, the industry minister, appear to be entertaining, that would only hold Australia back and mean we miss out on the enormous productivity benefits to be gained here. Now, there are people in the government that appear to understand that. Andrew Leigh is one of them. I'm very much on his side of this debate, that we should be leaning into this adoption for the enormous productivity benefits it could bring.
The unions are essentially, doing what the unions we expect them to do, saying, wants the government to basically legislate that AI can't replace any jobs. That's just not reality. That's just not living in the real world. AI is going to replace jobs. It's how these jobs evolve and adapt. What should government's role be in that?
Laura, the union movement has a very long history in Australia of trying to stand in the way of technological development, most infamously with the wide comb dispute, where they wanted to make sure that shearers only used thin combs, which would shear a sheep more slowly than a wide comb, because I thought that would cost jobs. I mean, that is how ridiculous the union movement's record is on AI adoption, on technology adoption, and we don't want to see that happen in AI. So it is a test for the Albanese government, particularly at their productivity summit, that they must stand up against these unreasonable demands. They are absurd, and they would cost the Australian economy jobs and productivity growth. In fact, if the union movement is successful and stops Australian firms in adopting AI, all they will ensure is that those firms become uncompetitive and employees in those firms lose their jobs against competitors elsewhere in Australia or internationally that are successful in deploying AI. And there's now growing evidence about the productivity benefits, and not just in the private sector, but to the public sector too. UK government report found a saving of 26 minutes a day per worker from the rollout of AI. That might not sound like much, but over a year, that's 2 weeks per public service employee. And a Microsoft Australia study with the Australian government found that 40% of employees who used it were being able to use their time on higher level tasks that only human beings can do, rather than lower level, basic tasks. So these are immense benefits to citizens and taxpayers that could be derived from productivity benefits from AI.
Yeah, I think it's particularly unproductive to try and stop the flow, the tide of AI at the moment. James, we'll keep talking about this. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Laura.